Just after 8:11 p.m. on July 22nd, 2024, while searing dinner in my third-floor walk-up overlooking the Mississippi River in downtown Minneapolis, every bulb in my apartment pin-clicked dark. The stove flame whooshed out, and the subtle hum of the refrigerator, the background sound I never noticed until it died, collapsed into a hush so total I could hear the faint fizz of cooling cast iron. Blackouts happen in summer storms here, but the evening sky outside my windows was a flawless cobalt. No warning thunderheads and street lamps along Washington Avenue stayed lit, which made my sudden darkness feel targeted. The digital clock on the microwave blinked off mid-digit, freezing time at 8:12, while the hallway exit sign across from my door still glowed cherry red, so the outage ended precisely at my breaker panel. When I thumbed my phone flashlight, reception bars vanished, screen stuttered static like an untuned TV, then reset to 00:00 DST, January 1st, 1970. A prickle of memory surfaced. My building's wiring was patched by the previous owner using scraps of theater rigging cable he scavenged from an old cinema, and an electrician once joked the panel looked half alive. I unlatched the breaker closet, expecting to trip the main and restore power. But every switch already sat dead center, neither on nor off, handles fused by some invisible weld. From behind the sheet metal, a slow, breathy sound exhaled, as if warm air cycled through lung-like ducts. Startled, I backed out, and my motion sensor light in the stairwell flicked on, revealing the hallway now extended twice its normal length. Extra doors stenciled with numbers above the building's count. 4B, 5B, labels that never existed. I called up to my neighbor Sarah's loft, but the ceiling in her place thudded strange rhythms not matching human footfalls. Deciding to leave, I descended stairs toward the lobby, yet every flight I took seemed to land on the same mezzanine. Same mailboxes, same dusty bike storage sign, ground floor refusing to arrive. My smartwatch, brand new and fully charged, vibrated once and displayed a push alert. Grid interruption. 00:18, a timer counting upward instead of down. The watch face then flipped to an ECG graph live tracing my heartbeat. Each spike mirrored by a second spike, phase shifted half a beat late, like a shadow pulse. I ripped it off, but its screen stayed lit, pulsing alone. Hoping the street still existed, I took the fire escape route, pushing the roof access bar. Instead of sky, I stepped into my own kitchen, cast iron still cooling, but the microwave clock now blinked 8:14, though I swore 20 minutes had passed. Outside the window, Washington Avenue lampposts began popping off one by one, darkness sweeping block by block toward my building like a rolling shutter, until only the bulb across the street burned, illuminating a solitary figure in vintage lineman overalls, climbing the pole without gear. His silhouette unscrewed the final bulb and tucked it into a canvas satchel, plunging the block into cave black. Inside, my stovetop burner reignited unsparked blue flame, twisting tall, and in its reflection on the microwave door I saw two additional silhouettes behind me, outlines grainy as VHS static. I spun, nothing but cold air smelling faintly of ozone. The stovetop flame suddenly drew inward like a reversed video and disappeared, sucking the cookware into brief vacuum thump. At that exact instant, every window in the apartment greeted me with a different view. One pane showed the river at dawn, another reflected downtown lights yet upside down. A third stared into a corridor I'd never seen, lined with breaker panels ajar, cables dangling like entrails. Each panel's mains flicked in and out by unseen fingers, and whenever a switch snapped down, a bulb in my apartment flicked on for a heartbeat, then died, creating Morse code bursts of light I recognized from an old electrician's manual as breaker labels: kitchen, bedroom, life. The last set spelled simply you. I fled to the bathroom. No mirror there because I'd shattered it a month earlier, but the medicine cabinet had regrown glass, silvered and pristine. Within it, my reflection still, but behind my shoulder, the lineman stood, face hidden under leather welder visor. He lifted a spool of copper wire, feeding it through my chest like thread through cloth. Zero pain, yet my vision dimmed, each heartbeat echoing metal clank. I swung, hitting nothing, yet the mirror now showed my breaker closet deepened into a shaft plunging 12 floors down, glowing red at the pit. Emerging from darkness climbed generations of linemen, each carrying burnt light bulbs that sputtered with tiny trapped storms. A child, barefoot, eyes glazed, held up my microwaved clock, digits reversed as 21:8, which made no sense until I realized it read 8:12 reflected. Time. Since outage never advanced beyond that moment. Lightning cracked outdoors for the first time all night, flashing real sky in the windows. I lunged for the breaker closet again, thinking to rip the whole panel free. The levers were now distinctly labeled with names: Sarah, landlord, me. Only mine sat half-thrown. I wrenched it full up and screamed. A flash seared white, and I awoke on the kitchen floor to the refrigerator humming. Lights steadily burning, 8:23 p.m. Phone service restored with 11 voicemails from Sarah asking why hallway lights flickered. Then she heard me yelling. Outside, street lamps glowed normal, yet the microwave clock stayed stuck at 8:12, and each time I set it, minutes ticked until 8:12, then reset. Worse, every bulb in my place now rattles faintly, and when storms roll through, their filaments strobe tinny voices repeating breaker 14, though my apartment holds only 13 circuits. I replaced the panel, swapped every fixture, even moved across town, but at precisely 8:12 nightly, the new breaker box hums, one lever twitches half down, and my watch reboots to grid interruption 00:00, counting up again, promising that some maintenance schedule beyond human operators still remembers the outage and won't be satisfied until every bulb, every breath, and every minute borrowed from the grid is finally unscrewed and pocketed by the lineman who never needed daylight to finish his route. A little after 6:47 p.m. on December 3rd, 2023, while I was grading papers at my kitchen table in the Oakview subdivision outside Tallahassee, every house light on the cul-de-sac winked out at once. Printers and laptops died mid-whir, and the quiet suburban evening contracted into a kind of padded silence I'd only heard during hurricanes when barometric pressure bottomed out. Except the sky was windless, clear, and still purpled by dusk. Power flickers are normal on our aging grid, so I lit a candle, texted the outage to the city app, and thought nothing more until I stepped onto the porch and noticed the oddest thing. The street lamps had not come on. They run on photosensors, triggering the instant sunlight fades, yet their globes remained black beads against the growing dark. Neighbors' porch lights, many wired to motion sensors, stayed dead too. Farther down, the one house owned by a night shift nurse, always lit. At sunset, still glowed, with Christmas string lights. But those lights were wrong. The bulbs shone steady, no twinkle pattern, and each emitted a faint buzz you could hear from my driveway like static on a vinyl record. My phone lost connection. No bars, no Wi-Fi, and its clock flicked from 6:52 to 00:00, then froze. I could still make out silhouettes of my neighbors wandering into yards, phones held aloft as if searching for service. We gathered in the street, comparing notes. Power out across 3 blocks, maybe more. Someone suggested tripped main substation, yet the horizon over downtown still pulsed orange from stadium lights. Mrs. Garcia's battery lantern reflected panic in her eyes when she pointed north. Is that moving? At first I saw nothing, then realized the paper-white orb hovering over the next cul-de-sac wasn't a drone. It was the moon, except it slid sideways beneath clouds too fast, as if projected on a curtain being dragged. Almost immediately, every phone camera tried to open, shutters clicking though no apps were launched. One brave dad, Julian from Lot 8, dragged an extension ladder to the street lamp on our corner. When he pressed a voltage pen to the pole's access panel, the tester pulsed green, meaning the line still carried current even though the bulbs were off. He twisted the diffuser cap. A LED array inside was missing entirely. Socket filled with something that looked like black ice, shiny and fluid, yet holding shape. Julian tapped it with a screwdriver. The ice recoiled, surface rippling inward as if drawing the metal deeper. He stepped back fast. The screwdriver tip now smoked, plastic handle softening. At 7:09, or whatever 00:22 meant on our phones, every home thermostat clicked. HVAC blowers spun a second, then stopped. A low note vibrated underfoot like the hum before an elevator ascends. Streetlights one block over flared to life, blinding white, hotter than xenon, casting knife edges of shadow. Their light didn't stop at houses. It poured through windows, flooding interiors with chalky brilliance even where curtains hung. Inside those houses, we watched personal objects drift into view, rotating slowly as though underwater, suspended by nothing picture frames, mugs, dog toys. With a pop, all lights there died. Objects crashed, glass shattered. Silence returned. Kids began crying. Parents marched everyone back indoors. Flashlights worked, but their beams felt thinner, as if light lost density. In my kitchen, the candle flame lengthened, pulling toward the ceiling vent though no air moved. The breaker panel still read, "On for every circuit." I shut the main, reopened, nothing. Generators hummed 2 streets away, then coughed out, spiraling down like engines starved of oxygen. At 8 o'clock, my watch face now looping between 00:00 and 00:59, the emergency sirens on the distant highway groaned awake, then froze midway through the wail. Over that half-syllable, a voice came through every dead speaker in the houses, not broadcast radio, but doorbell cams, baby monitors, even Bluetooth earbuds on countertops. A woman, calm, reading off addresses. Our addresses: 1405 Cedar Ridge, 1407 Cedar Ridge, listing each house in order around the cul-de-sac. After every 5th address, she said, "Night accepted, lights reserved." When she finished the loop, every flashlight blinked twice. Julian radioed with a ham handheld running off batteries. He'd tuned all local repeaters. Dead air. Only a carrier wave on 162 megahertz remained, repeating a 6-digit string that matched the lunar coordinates of tonight's full moon rise. Except the moon was still glued unnaturally low in the sky. The carrier grew louder if you pointed the whip antenna at street lamp poles. At exactly what phones mislabeled 01:13, the pavement of Cedar Ridge Court glowed faint, granular LEDs embedded flush with asphalt. Nothing ever installed by the HOA. They lit sequentially, creating a wandering path like airport taxi lights spiraling toward the retention woods behind our lots. My front yard security floodlight, previously disabled by the outage, snapped on with industrial brightness, tilting itself to illuminate the path. Against the false daylight, we saw the black ice substance from earlier flowing down every pole, pooling like mercury, tracing the luminous trail. The PA voice returned, soft as a lullaby. Street grid paid. Collectors arriving. Residents enter protective dark. Instinct, dread, whatever you call the primitive order in the blood, told me no one should follow that path or allow whatever followed it to reach a doorway. I slammed my front door, killed the candle, pulled curtains, urged neighbors to do the same. We crouched behind furniture as a brightness beyond midnight marched past windows. Steps, without footfalls, just a radiance that pried under door sweeps, tasting air. The moment it reached the backwoods, an impact shook soil like a giant transformer dropping into silt. All lights, every dead bulb, every watch face, even LED toys, blazed in unison, then burned out forever. Morning returned after what felt like years, real sun-topping pine treetops. City utility trucks rolled in, puzzled by a blink nobody downtown experienced. Our breakers reset on their own. Yet every street lamp on Cedar Ridge Court is now faceless. Socket smooth, metal polished, no sign lamps were ever installed. The path of embedded LEDs vanished, asphalt seamless. But on thermal cameras Julian borrowed from work, a faint afterglow snakes across our lawns each night at 8:12 exactly. Temperature 3 degrees above ambient, leading still toward the woods where soil remains glassy. I switched subdivisions, but power glitches follow. At precise 00:00 on digital clocks, my porch light flicks twice, a collector's reminder that the grid keeps receipts, and one calm voice still audits addresses, reserving every watt of light that ever belonged to us, planning to repossess it the moment another neighborhood forgets how dark the sky can really get. When the statewide grid collapsed at 10:06 p.m. on April 15, 2024, I was descending alone in Service Elevator C of the 113-story Atlas Meridian Tower in downtown Denver. I had just finished a floor-by-floor fire alarm inspection, and the cab shuddered to a stop at level 72, doors snapping open onto a floor that should have been, well, a tenant's mechanical loft, but instead revealed this pitch-black corridor lined with humming generators I knew the building did not possess. Atlas Meridian's emergency power was centralized in the sub-basement, yet row upon row of industrial inverters glowed with red-eye LEDs, cords looping like intestines across concrete, each machine stamped with a brass plate that bore only one word: feed. The hallway smelled of solder and wet soil. Behind me, the elevator doors slid shut and refused every button mash. My handheld work lamp cut a thin cone, illuminating floor tiles stenciled with white arrows, all pointing deeper inside. Each arrow's paint writhed in the light, small flakes unpeeling to suggest the arrows had been repainted nightly, layer over layer, always guiding the same direction. I followed, my radio crackling on my belt with dead carrier. All building repeaters were out. After 40 yards, I reached a steel door marked Generator Room 72. No such room existed on schematics. Touching the knob sent static crackling through my glove as if I completed a circuit. Inside, the space widened into a low cathedral of machinery. Ceiling lost in rafters, diesel tanks stacked like silos, and along the back wall, a single theater curtain draped from I-beam to floor, backlit by an amber pulsing glow. Every engine here thrummed, yet no exhaust vented. I stepped around drip pans that caught nothing but jittery crescents of light. Approaching the curtain, I heard layered voices issuing from the other side. Not speech, but syllables looped backward, reversed chants that rose and fell in sync with the glow. The blackout timer on my work tablet showed battery and time both frozen at 99%. I lifted a corner of the curtain. Beyond was not another room but a freight shaft descending past my light's reach, sheer concrete walls alive with cables that crawled downward like roots. Along the rim, heavy-duty extension cords disappeared into the drop. Humming. Wind, impossible at this altitude indoors, rose from the shaft carrying cold that tasted of limestone caves. As I leaned to listen, a plummeting flashlight tumbled past, spinning. Its strobe revealed numbers painted down the shaft walls, decreasing with depth 71, 70, 69. So this cavity replaced every subfloor all the way to ground. My radio transmitted sudden bursts, a copy of my own earlier inspection logs, but each sentence time-stamped 15 minutes into the future, describing things I had not yet seen. Broken helmet lamp, severed glove, exposed wrist. The feed ended with a final line reading, "Power must come from somewhere." A clang echoed above. Elevator counterweights clattered. I swung the lamp upward and saw a maintenance platform descending, empty, chains rattling softly. It halted flush with the sill, inviting. On its safety rail hung a coil of extension cord plugged into nothing yet glowing at the prongs. The platform controls bore a handwritten tag. Grid harvest route. Return to level 1 only when full. Against every policy I boarded, driven by morbid need to find the source. The joystick lever clicked without power, yet the platform began lowering, guided by unseen motors. As we sank, darkness thickened despite my lamp until only the rail-mounted worklight, a unit I did not switch on, paled the shaft in sepia. Levels ticked past, painted numbers now smeared into hash marks. Walls pressed closer, damp with condensation. Cables throbbing as if fluid pumped within. At what should have been level 40, an alcove opened, crammed with discarded office lamps, exit signs, refrigerator bulbs, all wired together, filaments pulsing like capillaries. My platform stopped. A conveyor arm extended from the alcove, presenting a single incandescent bulb still screwed into half a ceiling socket. That bulb's filament flared, projecting images onto the shaft wall. News footage from tonight's outage, anchors mouthing panic while studio lights flickered. The arm insisted. The handwritten tag on my rail vibrated, flipping to reveal new text. First contribution. Understanding dawned that this under-tower engine did not generate power. It collected every light extinguished above. I unscrewed my handheld lamp's LED module and placed it on the tray. The arm retracted. Instantly, the bulb in the alcove died. Platform resumed. As floors dropped, conveyor arms offered other artifacts. Phone screens, retired exit signs, surgical lamps still smelling of antiseptic. Each time I surrendered another piece of my gear, radio battery, wristwatch dial, the shaft accepted and swallowed them, momentum restarting only after tribute. My platform arrived at a depth where no floor numbers remained, only the rumble of turbines. A cavern yawned, its ceiling lost beyond beams. In the center sat a colossus of mirrored panels forming a sphere, seams glowing lava orange. Cords funneled into it, vanishing under plates marked with countless addresses and dates. Moments of blackouts passed. An access stair descended to a control dais where a single breaker handle waited. The handle's placard read, "Manual top off, all districts." I realized if thrown, every collected lumen would surge back topside, but the harvester would then demand equal trade from the nearest body. A shadow scuttled across panels, first thought animal, but resolved into my own silhouette projected by the sphere, except the arms were outstretched as if already gripping the handle. My real hands hung at my sides. The platform behind me began rising without me, retreating. Alone, I faced the breaker. The chants around the sphere coalesced into one clear statement inside my skull. You take the light, you stay instead. Remembering the future log about exposed wrist, I hurled my ruined glove across the gap and sprinted for the platform's chain ladder, grabbing it before it ascended out of reach. The breaker stayed unthrown. Cavern dimmed. Chants fell silent. It carried me upward for an eternity measured only by heartbeats. When the lift delivered me back to the generator hallway on 72, every machine stood lifeless, brass plates tarnished green. The elevator door reopened smoothly, lights restored overhead. My watch reading 10:08 p.m. Only 2 minutes gone. I emerged into a lobby bright with emergency fluorescents. Staff excited that backup generators had kicked in. No one else remembered a drop longer than a blink. Yet Atlas Meridian's grid now carries an odd deficit. The 70-second floor panel logs phantom kilowatt draw every night at 10:06 sharp, equal to whatever lighting I've used that day in my apartment across town. I live mostly in darkness, fearing the day the ledger shows 0 because then the harvester beneath Denver will send its empty platform again, and the only contribution left to balance will be the last brightness behind my eyes. Blackouts reveal more than darkness. Some steal timestamps, claim neighborhoods, or harvest every bulb we ever lit. If these true tales jolted your nerves, like share, subscribe, and tap the bell icon, because losing power is easy. Getting your light back might cost far more than you think.